My fiancée publicly humiliated me at our wedding as a prank, so I pulled an even bigger one by canceling everything. Now she's begging for another chance. I, 28M, was supposed to marry Vanessa, 27F, the woman I believed was my soulmate. We had been together for 4 years, and while I knew she had a playful nature and loved attention, I never imagined she would take things too far. In hindsight, I should have recognized the warning signs. Vanessa had a habit of turning serious moments into jokes. When I proposed, she pretended to say no for 5 agonizing minutes before laughing and accepting. When I got a promotion, she gave a speech at the celebration, dismissing my hard work and claiming I had just gotten lucky. She always insisted it was all in good fun, but the jokes were always at my expense. Still, I loved her and accepted that it was just part of who she was. However, my doubts began to grow when her friends started hinting about a big surprise she had planned for the wedding. When I pressed them for details, they simply laughed and said, "Oh, you'll see." That set off alarm bells. I had no idea what she was planning, but my gut told me it wasn't good. That's when I turned to my friend Mark, who happens to be a lawyer. I told him I needed some insurance, so we drafted a completely fake prenuptial agreement. It was filled with legal jargon and contained one very specific clause. If either party publicly embarrassed the other before signing, all jointly planned financial obligations would be immediately nullified, and a public apology must be issued. The document was entirely unenforceable, but it looked legitimate. I had it printed, signed, and ready, just in case Vanessa decided to pull something. Then came the wedding. Everything seemed perfect until we stood at the altar. Just before we were about to exchange vows, Vanessa grinned, took the microphone from the officiant, and said, "I have a little surprise for my wonderful soon-to-be husband." She turned to the crowd and dramatically waved toward the doors. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to the real love of my life." I froze. The guests turned in confusion as a man walked in. Vanessa's ex, Jason. Vanessa beamed. "Come on up, Jason. You didn't think I'd get married without my first love here, did you?" Jason strode up to the altar, grinning. The crowd murmured, clearly uneasy. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. Vanessa turned back to me with a wide smile. "Babe, I just couldn't say what I do without making sure Jason approved first. I mean, he was such a big part of my life, and, well, we've been talking a lot lately." "Talking a lot?" I repeated, my voice hollow. Jason clapped me on the back and smirked. "Relax, man. It's just a joke." Her bridesmaids burst into laughter, acting as if this was the most hilarious thing they had ever witnessed. But Vanessa wasn't finished. "Oh, and just for fun, I had a little poll going among my bridesmaids. We'd been taking bets on whether I'd actually go through with the wedding or not." She pulled out her phone and showed a group chat filled with laughing emojis, votes on whether she'd fake cold feet, and even bets on whether I'd cry at the altar. The room fell silent. My mother looked like she was about to faint. My father's face turned beet red, and my best man muttered, "What the actual hell?" I felt my hands shaking. Vanessa stood there, waiting for me to laugh along with her. "Oh, come on, babe," she said, nudging me. "Lighten up. You didn't really think I was going to leave you, right?" That's when I smiled, because I had the perfect response ready. The entire room was still. Vanessa stood at the altar, grinning as if she had just pulled off the greatest prank in history. Her bridesmaids continued giggling. Jason stood beside me like he belonged there. Half the guests looked at me with pity. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. My mother clutched my father's arm, tears welling in her eyes. My best man, Ryan, looked like he was about to throw a punch. And Vanessa? She was still waiting for me to react. "Oh, come on, babe," she urged. "Say something." My fiancée publicly embarrassed me at our wedding as a so-called prank, so I decided to outdo her by calling off the entire event. Now, she's pleading for another shot. I, 28M, was set to marry Vanessa, 27F. The woman I once believed was my perfect match. After 4 years together, I was well aware of her love for pranks and being the center of attention, but I never imagined she'd cross a line. Looking back, the warning signs were there all along. Vanessa had a habit of making light of significant moments. When I proposed, she pretended to reject me for what felt like an eternity before finally laughing and accepting. When I earned a promotion, she gave a speech at the celebration, downplaying my efforts and chalking it up to luck. She always insisted it was harmless fun, but I was always the target. Despite that, I loved her and accepted that it was simply part of her personality. My doubts intensified when her friends dropped hints about a surprise she had planned for the wedding. When I pressed for details, they just chuckled and said, "You'll find out soon enough." That put me on edge. I wasn't sure what she was planning, but my instincts told me it wouldn't be good. That's when I contacted my friend Mark, a lawyer, and asked him to help me put together some security. We drafted a completely fake prenuptial agreement filled with legal jargon and one key clause. If either party publicly humiliated the other before signing, all joint financial commitments would be immediately void, and a public apology would be required. The document had no legal standing, but it looked authentic. I had it printed, signed, and prepared. Just in case Vanessa decided to pull something unexpected, then came the wedding day. Everything appeared perfect until we reached the altar. Just as we were about to exchange vows, Vanessa grinned mischievously, grabbed the microphone from the officiant, and announced, "I have a little surprise for my amazing groom." She turned to the guests and gestured dramatically toward the entrance. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the real love of my life." I stood frozen. The guests turned toward the doorway, confused, as a man entered. Vanessa's ex, Jason. Beaming, Vanessa continued, "Come on up here, Jason. You didn't think I'd get married without my first love in attendance, did you?" Jason confidently strode up to the altar, grinning. The crowd murmured, clearly uncomfortable. I felt like I was stuck in a nightmare. Vanessa turned back to me, smiling widely. "Babe, I just couldn't say what I do without making sure Jason approved first. He was such an important part of my past. And, well, we've been talking a lot recently." "Talking a lot?" I echoed, barely processing her words. Jason smirked and clapped me on the back. "Relax, man. It's just a joke." Her bridesmaids erupted into laughter, acting as if this was some kind of grand comedy routine. But Vanessa wasn't finished. "Oh, and just for fun, I ran a little bet with my bridesmaids. We'd been taking wagers on whether I'd actually go through with the wedding or not." She pulled out her phone and showed a group chat brimming with laughing emojis, guesses on whether she'd fake cold feet, and even bets on whether I'd break down at the altar. A heavy silence filled the room. My mother looked pale. My father's face darkened with anger, and my best man muttered, "What the hell is this?" My hands trembled. Vanessa stood before me, waiting for me to find her stunned amusing. "Oh, come on, babe," she teased, nudging me. "Lighten up. You didn't really think I was going to ditch you, right?" That's when I smiled because I had the perfect comeback. The entire venue remained still. Vanessa stood at the altar, beaming as though she had just pulled off the most brilliant prank ever. Her bridesmaids continued giggling. Jason stood beside me like he belonged there. Some guests gazed at me with sympathy. My pulse pounded in my ears. My mother clung to my father's arm, on the verge of tears. My best man, Ryan, looked ready to punch someone. And Vanessa? She was still waiting for my reaction. "Oh, come on, babe," she pressed. "Say something." I took a deep breath and let a slow smile spread across my face. "Wow," I said, shaking my head. This is incredible." Vanessa's face lit up, thinking I was playing along. She had no clue I had anticipated this moment. I turned to the officiant. "Do we have a table for signing the marriage license? I need to grab something." The officiant, who looked as stunned as the rest of the guests, hesitantly nodded and gestured toward a small table nearby. I strode over, pulled a black folder from my bag, and held it up for everyone to see. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, I have a document I'd like to share with my beloved fiancée. Vanessa's smile faltered. Wait, what? I unfastened the folder and revealed the fake prenuptial agreement. Vanessa, I said, keeping my tone calm. I had my lawyer draft up a little agreement before the wedding. Just a simple precaution. In case you ever decided to pull something like this. I held up the contract so everyone could see the official-looking seal at the bottom. Vanessa's face turned ghostly pale. What the hell is that? She asked, her cheerful demeanor finally cracking. Oh, just a small clause, I replied, flipping through the pages for effect. Right here, it states that if either party publicly humiliates the other before signing the marriage license, then all joint financial responsibilities, including wedding costs, the honeymoon, and shared assets, are immediately null and void. A collective gasp echoed through the crowd. Vanessa blinked rapidly. Wait, what? That's not real. Oh, it's very real, I countered smoothly. And it also requires the guilty party to issue a public apology right now, in front of everyone here. Jason chuckled. Dude, you can't be serious. This has to be a joke. I turned to him with a smirk. Oh, I take pranks very, very seriously. Vanessa began to panic. Babe, this is insane. You're not actually mad, are you? I tilted my head. Why would I be mad, Vanessa? This is all part of the fun, right? So here's my prank. I'm canceling this entire wedding. A heavy silence filled the room. Her smile crumbled. Wait, what? I snapped the folder shut. Don't look so surprised. You had your joke. Now it's my turn. Weddings are off. The room erupted in hushed murmurs and shocked gasps. The officiant awkwardly stepped aside. Vanessa's face transitioned from pale to a furious shade of red. You're joking. Am I? I turned to my best man, Ryan. Would you do the honors? Ryan grinned, pulled out his phone, and tapped the screen. Loud wedding music blasted through the speakers. Except instead of the traditional wedding march, it was Hit the Road Jack. Some guests chuckled. Others stared in disbelief. Vanessa? She looked like she was about to hyperventilate. You're not serious, she hissed. You're not walking away. I flashed a grin. I literally am. I turned to my parents. I think we're done here. My mother gave a firm nod, and my father immediately began informing guests that the wedding was officially canceled. Then I turned to Jason, who was still smirking as if this was all a joke. Hey, Jason, I called. You like stealing other people's fiancés, right? Well, congratulations. She's all yours. His grin vanished in an instant. Vanessa whirled around. Jason, tell him this is ridiculous. Jason took a step back. Actually, I think I'm going to head out. What? She shrieked, but he was already making his way down the aisle. Now, the entire room was buzzing. The bridesmaids awkwardly sipped their drinks. Some guests chuckled, while others exchanged astonished glances. Vanessa looked like her whole world had just crumbled. You can't just leave me like this, she screamed. I turned back one last time. Vanessa, you crave attention more than anything. Well, congratulations, you've got it. With that, I turned on my heel and walked out of my own wedding, leaving her standing there humiliated, exactly as she deserved. It was, without a doubt, the best decision I had ever made. As I stepped outside, my best man followed, along with my parents and several guests who wanted nothing to do with Vanessa after what she had done. Behind me, she was still at the altar, screaming my name, but I never looked back. The fallout was swift. My phone was flooded with messages and missed calls from Vanessa. At first, she played dumb, acting as if she had no idea why I had left. Then came the fury, angry texts about how I had embarrassed her, how she couldn't believe I would ruin the wedding over something so harmless. She insisted it was just a joke, that I had completely overreacted. When I refused to engage, she shifted tactics, threatening to tell everyone I had abandoned her at the altar. That was laughable, considering she had turned our wedding into a spectacle. But she underestimated one thing: receipts. My best man had already taken screenshots of her bridesmaids group chat before we left. The same chat where they had placed bets on whether she'd go through with the ceremony or pretend to get cold feet. That alone dismantled any attempt she made to rewrite the story. Word spread fast. Guests who had been uneasy about her antics now had the full picture, and they weren't shy about sharing it. Within days, Vanessa's reputation was in ruins. Even her own parents reached out to apologize on her behalf. Apparently, they had warned her against pulling any stunts at the wedding, but she ignored them. Her friends, the same ones who had encouraged her pranks, began to distance themselves when they realized just how damaging it all was. A joke was one thing. Publicly humiliating your fiancé at the altar was another. No one wanted to be associated with that level of cruelty. Then came the financial blow. Vanessa had the audacity to demand that I reimburse her for the wedding expenses. That was rich, considering I had paid for nearly everything. The venue, catering, my suit, even the honeymoon she had been so eager for. It was all under my name. With one simple phone call, I canceled everything. She was left with nothing. No wedding, no honeymoon, no sympathy. A week later, she showed up at my door. I wasn't surprised. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. It was clear she had finally realized just how badly she had messed up. She tried to apologize, saying she never intended for things to go this far, that she never thought I would actually walk away. She told me she still loved me, that we could fix things if I just gave her another chance. I wasn't interested. I handed her an envelope, watching as she opened it with shaking hands. Inside was an invitation. Not a real one, just a mock wedding rehearsal at the same venue where she had made a fool of me. The date was that very day. The guest list? Everyone who had witnessed her disaster. There was no groom's name, just one simple note. Now we're even. She looked up at me, speechless. I didn't say a word. I simply shut the door and walked away. Vanessa had wanted to turn our wedding into a joke. She got her wish. Except now, the punchline was her own life falling apart. She never recovered. Someone had filmed parts of the wedding, and once the footage hit the internet, it went viral. The comments shredded her apart, dubbing her the bride who got left as a joke. Job opportunities disappeared. Friends and even family distanced themselves. Her bridesmaids abandoned her the moment they realized their involvement would tarnish their own reputations. And Jason, the man she had paraded in front of me, he wanted no part of the aftermath. He ghosted her and moved on without a second thought. As for me, I flourished. I took time to heal, focus on my career, and eventually met someone who truly valued and respected me. Meanwhile, Vanessa kept trying to reconnect, emails, messages, even showing up at places she thought I'd be. I never responded. The last I heard, she was struggling financially and still alone. She wanted to make me the punchline. Instead, she became the joke.